Yeah, right? I saw you on Facebook. It's all right. It's still a little more expensive than the East Coast, but how are you today? Yeah, that is true. I rent us every now and then. Yeah. Right. Isn't here?
I'm going to be doing I'm her eye candy, you know. I'm her Top Gun trophy, you know, she can stay out with. So I'll be just throwing in every once in a while a couple of questions about the movie. We're going to do some trivia stuff, and Jennifer has some prizes as well. So you'll stay on this bus for the entire trip. We're just going to be changing at Charlie's house. So we'll be here for about this act's going to last about 45 minutes. So drive time to Oceanside. Just for Kvalvik, the stand, Jennifer. Is it Jessica? Folks, I have had a long weekend already. I've been on the Midway since yesterday morning at 7:15. Didn't get home till about 10:30 last night. At any rate, enough about me. So Jennifer here will be doing a lot of commentary on our way to Oceanside. That's right. I'll be filling in some of the questions you may have about the locale. And we'll be doing a trivia game from time to time about the quotes and also some of the facts and myths of the movie itself. So, with that, do you want to say anything?
Hey, great. Okay, so first of all, I am a high school teacher, so I can talk a little bit louder. I have to because they don't pay attention to me. They're paying attention to their phones. So, yes, so my name is Jennifer Kvalvik. At that time, I was Jennifer Nelson, and I was the stand-in for Kelly McGillis in the Top Gun movie originally. So I was on the set every day, except for 2 scenes. Can anybody figure out maybe what those 2 scenes are? That would make no sense for me to be there.
The bedroom scene.
Bedroom.
Yell it out.
The bedroom.
Bedroom.
On the ship.
Volleyball scene. Ding, ding, ding. And also the locker room scene. So those were the 2 days, though how much I would love to have been there, that I could not go. I said, come on. They said, oh, there's not room on the bus for you. So, but every other day I was there. So they were very long days, sometimes 10, sometimes 16 hours a day. What a stand-in is. So a stand-in is not a double. There was one tiny scene that I was a double for. But a stand-in is basically going through all of the scenes, just as she would, not really speaking the words, but just going through the scenes motion-wise. And then the crew sets up the scene so that she doesn't have to stand out on the flight deck for 5 hours, or she doesn't have to sit at the house while everything is being built around her. That was my job. So I was more of the person who sat there while they adjusted the lighting and the sound. So every once in a while I would have to say something. I looked like her at that time, and she, you know, was in her trailer and I was doing my thing. So, but it was a great experience. I loved it. I had a little baby girl at the time. And little known fact that actually they just found out, this crew just found out, that the picture of the wife and child at the very beginning of the movie when Cougar is freaking out is me and my baby girl.
That's right.
So she was just a year old. So now you can watch the first 5 minutes of the movie, and that's the only time you will actually see me. So I was on the, you know, on the set every day, and they said, don't you have a little girl? And I said, well, no, actually they asked me if I had a little baby, and I said yes, and they said, is it a boy? And I said, no, it's a little girl. Ugh. you know, a lot of sign because they had to change the script. So I do have the original Top Gun script where they crossed it out. And so, yeah, I was hoping she would have come down. She lives in Fresno. She's 37 years old. So that's her little claim to fame. So that would have been a kick if she could have come down for that. So that's just a little tidbit of fun. So here's a question for you. At the end of the movie, who puts the money in the jukebox?
You.
Yeah, it wasn't Charlie, it was me. So again, I got to show something. So we did that about 10 times and put in, okay, hesitate. Now put the money in and then hesitate before you take your hand away. I guess she had not so good looking hands. I got to be careful what I say, but they were like, we can't use her hands. Can we use your hands? So yay, I was a hand model for a day.
So did that get extra pay?
No, I did not get extra pay for that, unfortunately. So again, it was a great experience. The house that we're going to go up and see, it's amazing when you watch the movie because it's, you know, in a totally different place right now. It's not that far away, about a block away. Actually, this is like a e-ticket right here. It's about a block away. My second daughter lives about 2 blocks away from the house, so we've been watching it as it was being renovated. They moved it off the spot for a year because they were building resorts in that lot where the house was.
Oh, yeah.
And so they moved it away. I don't know where they moved it to. I kind of wanted to stalk it a little bit. But then they brought it back after the resort was almost done, and it's right smack dab in the middle, as you guys will see. It's like the perfect place for it. I love it. And now it's become something else, which I'll let that be a surprise. You guys can see when you go up there. But the house at that time was on this little residential street. Houses all around. It looks so different, the area that it's in. And also, they totally renovated it. I mean, there's some facts and figures as far as how much they paid the people to use their house. I mean, little do they know. Those people that own that house, they must be thinking, wow, look what an icon, or a house, little house, just a little tiny house. And they built a whole patio, and I put that big bird in there that was squawking in my ear. And so I sat there for a while, but it was beautiful when it was done. I remember them building the lattice behind me, and I thought, couldn't they have done this a little ahead of time and then put it behind me? But no, I just sat there on the couch while they were doing that because they had to figure out the lighting. Like, was the lattice going to cast a shadow on Charlie? So, are there any questions?
Yeah.
Were you able to bring some wine?
No. I kissed Tom Cruise first. That was the first day of shooting. So I got my call time the night before. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Oh my God, am I standing? What does this mean? And so we did that scene. And the first day of shooting, they decided to do the love scene. Excuse me? Well, she wasn't ready. She was in her trailer getting body makeup done. And they were like, we really need to set this up, the lighting. Tom was ready to go. So just the stand-up part, not the lay-down part. Just the stand-up part. I got to kiss him first. So that's my little like, ha, I got to kiss him first. He had to stand on 2 apple boxes. So, and she was about as tall as I am. So they had to do some tricks because he was short, quite a bit shorter than her. I mean, you can kind of see that in the film a little bit where he's just like right there. But, you know, you stand downhill, you stand uphill, so that helped. And then every once in a while you had to stand on a box. So, and it's funny because at that time, I really didn't think about the fact that, oh my gosh, this is Tom Cruise. He was so young. He was just this young kid. And I'm like, who is this guy? Yeah, so, but now later I'm like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. He hasn't called or written me, so whatever. But we did have some conversation. He was fantastic actor. I mean, he is. But at that time, you could already see the talent was just beyond. He was very serious about what he did. We all had a lot of fun. Did a lot of crazy things. You'll hear about that more. I don't want to give all the secrets away when we're back at the place with the Goose and stuff. But when Goose died, it almost chokes me up when I think about it, because it was like he truly lost his best friend. You couldn't talk to him. You couldn't get near him, right? I mean, anybody that maybe, was there anybody here that was on the set at that time? No. Okay. But it was like leaving him alone. His eyes were sunken in. He had been crying. I mean, part of the acting, I'm sure. But he was really trying to get into the mode of it. And that was very impressive to me at that time as a young actress myself. I was like, wow, he is truly really good. So, any questions? Yes?
What was on the paper airplane that he left her in that note?
I would love to know that too. I just watched it and I'm like, what was on the paper airplane? I don't know. Does anybody know?
What's the question?
I'm asking you now. Does anybody know what was on the little paper airplane that he left for her? On her pillow, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Because he didn't leave that for me.
And she smiled.
What?
And she smiled.
Yeah, she did.
He probably said it was great.
Yeah, right? Exactly. But we do have some trivia questions. Unless you guys have some more questions, I'll be glad to answer any questions later too. Yes?
How did you get the part as the stand-in?
So I was working on some things at that time. I was doing modeling at that time. And my agent, which you'll see later today, Tina Real, she's now in her 80s. So I'm really excited to see her. I haven't seen her in years. Just a sweetheart. She did all of the casting, extra casting and extra people that worked on it. She called me and she's like, I need you to come for an interview tomorrow. It was down at the hotel down there by the sports arena. And I went in there and they were like, oh yeah, you're the same height, it was the same body frame, kind of the same coloring, and that's what they look for a stand-in. So I just went for the interview, and then I got a call the next day and said, all right, you got it. So, and then after this movie was done, they had called me to be a possible stand-in. I'm not even sure who it was for, but it was for another movie up in LA, but I would have had to move there and with a family, and I was working at the bank. I couldn't do it, so. But yeah, it was just one of those crazy things that happened, Did you have a question?
Oh yeah, I read some trivia about the elevator scene when Charlie is with Cruz and he's got the towel from his workout and she's wearing a ball cap. And the reason is because she got her haircut for another part in another movie, and that scene was shot at the end of the movie, the shooting scenes. So she was hiding, she had long hair in the movie.
Right.
But she had a ball cap on because to make it look like it was up underneath her hat, but she didn't have that long hair anymore when that scene was shot.
That is interesting trivia, and you know what? That was not shared with me. I was not in the elevator with him. I was at the bathroom where he's testing out, the counter. Yeah. So, but not in the elevator. But that's interesting trivia. Yeah. You want a microphone now? I'm just kidding.
They did sure on that because the test audience said that there really wasn't enough love connection with the character here. So
Yeah.
It was like a while after they already filmed, so they actually had to bring up the movies to make them film those scenes. And then end up creating that relationship.
Yeah. I heard that too, but I'm very confused since we did the love scene the very first day. Like that was the first day of shooting, and I thought, what are they thinking? These two had not met, and how about they get to know each other a little bit before they do all of that, which did make her a little bit nervous. Thus, That's where the standing comes in. I'm like, okay, I don't mind.
She didn't do the blocking out there on the street when she races the car.
Oh yeah, I was standing across the street. I mean, I had to stand there and kind of, you know, just a little bit for like the sun and the lighting and stuff, but for the most part, I got to just watch that. They did that several times, and that was scary. I thought, oh my God, they're gonna hit something. That's pretty good. I'm sorry?
Kelly was next to driving the car.
She was driving the car.
She was. Always felt they did that.
Yeah. I wonder, okay, but to back up, I think possibly somebody else maybe had driven it first to show her like the route to go, and then she was doing it, so, yeah. And of course, he does all his own stuff, crazy man.
Yeah.
He is.
He rode the motorcycle.
Yeah, absolutely. So, interesting. I was asking about Charlie if she had driven the car, and I was saying yes, she did, but thinking back, I think they had a stunt person actually show the way first, and then she drove it, and it was scary to watch, actually. I was across the street watching it. And then, of course, he was driving the motorcycle, you know. There was no way he was going to let somebody else do that. And then what was you were talking about in the elevator scene, her hair was in a hat because supposedly she had cut her hair for another movie, and so she was kind of hiding it a little bit, which I did not know. So I just had a question. He just asked when we were doing the movie, was there any inkling whatsoever that this movie was going to be this big? Not even a chance. Not even for a moment. I thought, this is a small film, okay? And I actually did walk into the office because we had to check in with the production office.
Yes, I'm on the bus with Jennifer.
Checked in on the office, and they were arguing, and they were talking about shutting down the movie.
Jennifer?
They were talking about possibly shutting down the movie because it was so over budget, big time. So I don't know what they did. Somehow they all talked each other into continuing with it, but wow, so glad that they did, right? Yep. I mean, it's so iconic. So I teach high school, and my high school kids, they know the movie. They know it forwards and backwards, and it's like it's crossed so many generations, and it's just so fantastic. So it was meant to be that it continued, and I'm glad it did. So that was a good question. And later on, you'll see my album at my table, and it'll show a picture of his stand-in. So, and then we were the only two stand-ins. So I doubled as Meg Ryan's as well. She didn't have as many scenes, but like the, Great Balls of Fire scene with the piano and stuff. So I did that scene as well. Thankfully, I didn't have to sing.
Carpet experience that I was a part of, by the way. Did anybody see me on MTV? Yeah. I'll be signing autographs later. My agent will talk to you guys. But if they can do some of the trivia questions, we can too. So, what was the name of the commanding officer that sent Maverick and Goose to flight school? Stinger. Okay. Who was Maverick's #1 rival?
Iceman.
And why did not Iceman like Maverick?
He was dangerous.
Dangerous. Okay, who knew Maverick's father before he passed away?
Viper.
How many planes were lost in Viper Squadron? A lot? This is based on the quotes. I gotta find it here. 8 of 18. 10 men. And what was the reason that Maverick and Goose got killed during their hop?
Because they were stupid.
Jester killed him, but why? He left his wingman. Okay? So the reason was, that was the best flying that I've seen to date, right up to the part that you got killed. You never leave your wingman. And keeping in that theme, don't leave your bus buddy, okay? They got your 6 today. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, what song does Goose play for his wife?
Great
Balls of Fire. And where was it filmed at?
Kansas City Barbecue.
Where are we going to eat tomorrow afternoon?
That's right.
Kansas City Barbecue. How many have already been there? Isn't that a great place? Over the piano, about the 3rd photo in, did anybody see a picture of somebody
Pete Pettigrew.
Pete Pettigrew. And who was Pete Pettigrew? Viper. He was the real Viper. When you get to the Midway tomorrow, the F4 ready room, you'll have his name on the MiG kill board.
Okay.
Pete is also a docent on the Midway. So, yeah, he'll be here this afternoon.
And my picture's in there too.
What beverage would Maverick choose to extinguish the flames?
Budweiser.
Budweiser, I'm going to need a beer to put these flames out. Okay? And would Goose ever fly without Maverick? Yes. But what was the emotional feeling? He would have hated it. And what does Viper like in a pilot? Arrogance. Okay? And when Charlie asks if Maverick's a good pilot, how does Maverick respond?
I can hold my own.
What was that?
I can hold my own.
I can hold my own.
What did she say back?
He doesn't worry about it.
That's right.
Now, when she says, "Are you a pilot?" how does he respond back?
That's right.
Aviator. Again, when you get to the Midway tomorrow, in the F4 room, you'll see the wings of gold. And you'll see there's a difference between Maverick and Goose in their wings. Because one is a pilot and one is a RIO, a Navy flight officer. And they don't need to be pilots. I found out that pilots need to have great eyesight, but RIOs don't need to have great eyesight. They can be, wear glasses. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and what does Goose notice on the plaque with the names of the best of the best?
2 O's and Goose.
There's 2 O's in Goose. What does not receive points? Second place. There's no points in second place. Now, big question. What year did the movie Top Gun premiere? 1986. Because we're here in Oceanside. And what is the name of Goose's wife?
Carol.
Carol.
Only said like
So we are now in beautiful Oceanside, and take a look at the Pacific Ocean straight ahead.
Yeah, if you can see it. I'm gonna go straight down and make a left.
Beautiful view of the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
I was just saying, this corner right here is where Charlie's house originally was. So you can see this whole residential area. Tom Cruise goes right up that hill right there. Yeah. And this is where her house was.
This hill right here. Where you,
This has changed significantly since
right
85.
there.
Okay.
That's where Tom Cruise rode his bike up.
okay.
And then this is where her house was. And the doors facing out, of course, which is the same over there. And then around the side was where a lot of the filming was. On the side was where like the patio was, and where everybody went in and did the scenes. So you'll see some pictures. And yeah, so it's part of the seabird. So on that corner, and it's all was residential on the other side. On the other side, that's where the house was. And that hill coming up from the beachfront is where he rode his motorcycle up. So just how I took a note about it, it certainly looks a lot different than it did. It's actually officially quite open yet. I don't know. I saw some stuff on it. It's going to be. There were a lot of thoughts for it. Coffee shop. And it was an ice cream parlor. Pie. It's like a little pie shop, pie on a stick with ice cream inside. It sounds delicious.
And the Charlie house, we're going to present him with these items. This is one of 3 left in existence. It's a lithograph of the actual one that I used for Tom to drive him around. We got on bases, we got all over the place. This is one of 3 left.
Woo! Yeah!
This comes from Jennifer. Where's Jennifer?
Here.
There she is. So Jennifer was Kelly's stand-in. This is her personal picture that she took of Charlie's house while we were working up here. So she has had this in her closet for 35 years, and she's allowed, we think that its home would be here, framed here at the hotel. So this one's for you. For walking to work, doing her job, as you can tell, in front of Charlie's house. So we'd like to present that to you. Jennifer's co-partner was Jeff Moe. Jeff Moe looked just like Tom Cruise back in the day. Jeff was Tom's stand-in. The 2 of them worked very well together because they both had to stand in front of the camera for many hours until they got things done. That's Jeff on the motorcycle here in front of the house.
And where did you say he was now? Because I know you guys invited him.
I couldn't find him. And I'm a private investigator. Unbelievable.
I think it was.
Do not hire me for that. I will bodyguard you. I can do that very well. I'm ready to do this picture on that street right back there. It is in front of Charlie's house. We thought it was very nice. It comes from Jennifer's private collection. So no one has seen this on the internet. It's not there. It's been in her closet. So she feels that this is a place to have everybody enjoy it for decades to come. We present that. Do you have any idea? Because I don't know how you want to do it. So this document is the shooting schedule. The shooting schedule is for props and other departments to figure out what we're going to do at this house. So this lists what characters are going to be here. Location, Charlie's house, Oceanside. There's a back page. There's 4 of them. So this is a line item budget, and the interesting thing about it is set dressing. So at Charlie's house, exterior, we had to do building in the rear, single door, build a new wood and glass door and screen door, 2x8 by 6x8, practical. Hold the existing door and reset per directions of design, paint, strike. We had to build them a new kitchen. We put in floors. We painted the front room. We painted the deck. We built the deck on the side. We put the lattice in. All these are directions of things that we did that were an agreement with the original owner of the house. And here is the line item, $9,300 in 1985.
That would buy you more chair time.
Just hold it or let go? What do I do? Hold it or let go?
That sounds good, that's it.
Okay.
Hit it again.
All right, hang on. Right. Hold it.
My official jacket on. No more police now.
You were good?
I said, was he a good kisser?
Oh, he was okay. It wasn't involved kissing. Let's put it that way. Great, thank you. Of course. Oh, you got it? Yep. We're partners.
Yeah, we're blessed.
There's Rio. Yes.
Would you mind getting my picture with Jennifer?
37.
Wow. And the baby is
Little girl, right? And him.
This one's an extra large.
Everybody, my name is Frank. I worked on Top Gun, as you all know. I worked for Tom Cruise on this film, and it was my very first film, and I managed not to get fired along with Tony several times. So it was a very interesting experience. We were all young. We were all in our early 20s, and we were pretty much uncontrollable. So when Tony Scott realized that he's dealing with a whole bunch of young 20-year-olds, he would call you by your full name. Thomas Cruise Mopeter, Anthony Edwards, Frank Whiteley, he would go Franklin, and use my full name, and we knew we were in trouble. So we had to pay attention to what he was saying. One of the experiences with Mr. Bill, as producing the film, he's responsible for the actors coming on set on time. We were reading the Reader magazine, and we decided we wanted to go skydiving one morning. And so Sunday's our day off, and we all had this bright idea that we would go down to Brownsfield, jump out of an airplane for like $59. And we were like, this is cool. And we actually had a cell phone box. It was like big enough you could probably land a space shuttle with, that type of technology. It was amazing. The phone rings. Where are you guys? It's Mr. Bill. Where are you guys? Oh, we're sightseeing. Where specifically? Chula Vista area. What are you doing? Just kind of sightseeing. Are you in a plane? Yeah. And he goes, don't let him jump out of the plane. Okay, go get him. Okay, so I jump after him, and I said, we weren't supposed to jump out of the plane. So that was the first time that I got fired and then rehired the next morning. Tony and I and several other people, yeah, it's common to get fired several times. That was my first experience. I'm thinking like it's the end of my life. My career is done, the movie's done, blah, blah, blah. But no, it's just a butt chewing and you move on. So it was kind of very enlightening and very a very cool experience being on this film. Okay, so what else? Y'all heard about Jennifer and all the wonderful stories she told you? Did she?
You should. And no,
Yes,
I think it's I got extra.
Did she tell you that she was the one that made out with Tommy in this movie? Yeah, very, very interesting. So very low light, very an amber tone to it, and that's because Kelly was a little bit nervous at the beginning, and so Jennifer says, "Sure, no problem, I'll kiss him," and that's how that worked out.
Now, Frank, was that the scene that was actually in the movie, or did they redo that with Kelly?
That was the scene that was in the movie. You can see the bangs. Yeah. So pay close attention. So one of the things that some of you guys didn't get to hear about is the Charlie house. We actually did that in 3 different shots. So the original was at the house. The second was at North Island. We recreated the patio scene again, and so you'll see slight difference in the continuity. And then the final shot was shot on stage 11 in the parking lot at Paramount Studios. They dumped in, some vegetation and some lattice and painted the back of the building, and they actually brought Tom back in after about 2 months on cocktails. So here's hair's a little bit longer, and they brought in Kelly from Witness. Her hair is now brown, and so they had to put it up in a ball cap and hide all of her hair. The jacket, you'll notice that the G1 jacket, the famous cruise jacket, or Maverick jacket, that is a little different. It has a couple extra patches on it. And the reason why is John and Jerry made a half dozen of these leather jackets with all of the picture or all the patches from the different squadrons incorporated on the jacket. So there's a couple extra patches on this jacket in the closing scene there. And the reason why is because Tom had given the original jacket to his sister, and there was no time to fly to New Jersey to get it and then fly back to LA. So they just went up to Jerry's office and they grabbed one of the souvenir jackets that he had made. The original jacket, many stories about that. It was purchased at a secondhand store in Santa Monica. That jacket came with most of the original patches on it. That's why there's an array of different patches. There's a CV, there's enlisted, and then there's patches from the different ships that you wouldn't be assigned to if you were a fighter pilot. Why is all that on there? Then there's the anchor and the jack of all trades. So those are more enlisted type items. It was a very cool jacket, and the wardrobe guy looked at it and goes, "That's it. That's the one we want." Also, the cowboy boots. They're the weirdest cowboy boots ever. And there was only one size, and they stuffed the end of the toe and worked on them to fit Tom's foot. And it worked out perfect. In fact, he loved those boots so much that he was wearing them about 4 or 5 months, 6 months after the movie. He was in Hollywood area. There's a gym there, and you put everything in the locker and put the lock on it. Goes and works out, comes back. They stole the boots. Yeah, the boots have been MIA and they've never surfaced. No one knows where they are or what happened to them. The jacket, many stories have been going around. The last true story that I heard was that he had given the jacket to his sister, and then the jacket came back for Maverick, Top Gun Maverick, and so you can see that it's been scrutinized already. And the other Facebook group, the Top Gun Props, they have validated it, and it appears that the thread count and the patches are all correct. So the jacket did come back from his sister to be worn in the sequel.
Changed the Taiwan patch, didn't they?
What's that?
They changed the patch from Taiwan or something.
Yes. So the bloodshed on the back was a country that's no longer it's an ally now. And so after the movie, a lot of the market is in China and so forth like that. So they don't want to offend anybody today. So we took the bloodshed off. But yeah, bloodsheds were very important for pilots. The one on the back of Viper's jacket has 3 different languages, and it basically says, "Bring this guy and we will give you tons of gold, and we want him back." And that's what it says. And for the most part, when a pilot lands, some people can read, but not everybody, the farmers and so forth like that. So it worked okay during World War II, but it didn't work too well during the Korean War and Vietnam War. They found out that most people didn't know how to read. But, yep, there you go, that's a bloodshed. Yeah. And it's a very interesting concept. It has different languages, and it tells that, we will pay you lots and lots of money. Bring this guy back, don't hurt him, blah, blah, blah. Let's see, what else? We are going to go down from Charlie's house. We're going to go down and hit Miramar Road, cross over to Kearney Villa, which is the old 163. And that's how we got onto the base then. You will be able to see 2 of the 3 original hangars. Now, because the group started with about 40 people, I had permission from a captain to go over to Miramar and drive. But the group got big, and then the group also got international travelers, and they will not allow anybody without State Department paperwork to come on from another country. So we're going to drive by and take a look at the things. Some of the interesting things that we had done on the movie. Tom was very, very focused about making this work. He was like a sponge. Every time that we passed by a pilot, he was completely inundated, had to talk to the guy. Pilots talk with their hands. Pilots have their own language. We were going like this, and then we bank down and we go like this, and he just picked it up real quick. And one of the things that he would do is, we finish, we're a 12-hour day, we're 14 by the time we get him there and get him back to the hotel. At 16 to 18 hours during the day, he was in his hotel room at the travel lodge, banging on the computer, on the IBM typewriter, script changes that he learned during the day. So a lot of the pilots were very instrumental in helping us make the movie better. And some of the original lines didn't really flow very well. And so Checker 6, a lot of the lines that the pilots will tell you in their interviews today, they'll tell you the evolution of that. Tom was and has always been 110% focused on the movie. This is what he's getting paid for, and this is what he does. He puts it all in. That character, this is what he develops, and he doesn't get out of it until the movie's done. He wants to make sure that his craft and that character is accurate. So there wasn't a lot, other than his birthday party, there wasn't a lot of shenanigans going on with young men involving Tom at the time. Our shenanigans were all the other people. It got to the point where Mr. Bill actually gave us a travel trailer as a frat house on Miramar to bring us all together. And so we would, there was a Tower Records next to the hotel, and on Sundays we would all buy new music and then share that music with the group of what we're learning, like Talking Heads and all the cool songs that came out in the 80s. And so Mr. Bill thought that the Honey Wagon is the big semi-truck that has all the dressing rooms for the actors. And they hang out in there until they're called on the set. He thought that to bring them all together, he would buy a travel trailer. So he bought this really nice big travel trailer for us all to hang out. It became a frat house, and that's where most of us hung out during, in between the scenes. When Tom Skerritt walked up on the set, that guy was gone. All of the other actors, you know, yes, they were famous. They had, you know, smaller, like, you know, teenage roles. They were teenage heartthrobs. But Tom Skerritt was like God. When he walked on the set, it was very interesting seeing him. And, but he was a great guy. Him and Michael Ironside both interacted with everybody and acted just like normal people. And it was an awful lot of fun watching these two guys that were like older and you know, it was amazing seeing them. The younger guys, Rick Rosevich was in a lot of different movies. Val was in a bunch of younger movies, and so it was very interesting. And just the shenanigans. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
Rick got thrown off the carrier, didn't he?
Yes. Well, he didn't get actually thrown off the carrier. He was disciplined and then brought before the captain, and they didn't fly him off the carrier. He made a stink about the room. It was underneath the catapult. And you got to remember that we were guests on the ship, and there wasn't a lot of room for you know, the 5,200 people to begin with to make the boat work. And the available rooms were given up by junior grade officers, and the one room that accommodated him was directly under the catapult. The carrier runs 24 hours a day, and so they launch things at midnight, and that catapult, you just hear this every 30 seconds, and you're just like, oh man, you get just finally asleep, and then the second later, you're woken up again. And it rattles, and it vibrates your teeth loose, and I mean, it's a fun experience. And so he complained, and he pushed a little bit louder, and it became, you know, it's just one of those things where, again, you argue, and you're like, okay, we're going to kick you off. And he's like, well, I don't care, I'll go home. And it was just that attitude. It's like, I'm fed up, I need sleep. And after 7 days on the carrier, I need sleep. So, It's a great urban story. Like the urban story of the famous $25,000 check written by Tony Scott on the deck of the air. Okay, so it is a great story. I love that story. And Mr. Bill was there, and it was very interesting. So, as always, Tony shot about 8,600 feet of film. So that's about 9 times more needed than an hour and 30 minutes of thing, and enough for continuity shot. But every time he saw something, he wanted to capture it, and his vision was spot on. Jeffrey Kimball, the director of cinematography, had the ability to put the camera at the angle. Between these two guys, it was amazing. So the last day on the carrier, the last few hours on the carrier is now at the magic hour. Tony loved magic hour. Magic hour was sunset. You had the golden sunsets, California sunsets, San Diego sunsets are amazing. The twilight, the heat that we had at the time, it was just golden. It was very iconic. And so he's on the deck of the aircraft carrier, and the camera is set up, he's watching the sun, and the camera is moving, the boat is moving, the sun is moving, and all of a sudden the sun, the stars, the moon, everything aligns. And Tony throws his hands up and he says, "Bloody hell, that's it. That's the shot right there." And so he's very excited, and he's jumping up and down, and he's looking through the lens, and the sun is moving. And he's like, "Where's the sun going?" in his British accent. And he didn't comprehend that the boat's moving, not the sun's moving. And he's like, wait, stop the boat now. This is the shot, yes. And so he was very excited, and he's like, no, this is the shot. I have to have this shot. This is the one. And so Mr. Bill is there on the deck, and Mr. Bill's like, we've shot enough. You had all week, and we shot enough. We're over budget, so we need to, Mr. Bill's the producer of the thing, in charge of the money. We have to be very careful. What Tony didn't know was that, let's just say, for example, if we have $100 to spend every day, and we spend $75 one day, and we spend $110 the following day, but we only spend $50 at the end of the day, at the end of the week, we may have $100 left over. Well, yes, at the end of the week, there was money left over for the budget. Tony has been told many times to rein in and focus a little bit, but his vision, it's every time that we walked on the base, we saw something. There was a guy with a jet engine, a mechanic, and it's a pretty cool jet engine just sitting out there, and this guy's got rippling muscles, and he looks like, really cool. Don Simpson walks by and goes, "Damn, that's really cool. We gotta get that in here." And it's just something that's budgeted, that's not budgeted, and we're trying to get things in. So I'll explain another story about budgets in a minute. But as we were going through, Tony seeing this, Mr. Bill says, "No, you had all week, figure it out." And he goes, "No, this is the shot, this will work. I have to have this." And this is the shot where they throw the dog tags off. So the cemetery scene, this was much better. So Tony runs up to the captain up on the CIC deck and says, "Turn the ship around. I will pay you whatever." And they're like, "No, we're on a schedule. The fuel and the wages and all that. I'll give you a check for $25,000. Yeah, that's a lot of money back then. And it's just like, here's a lot of money. And no check was written. Mr. Bill said that they would take care of it, but it's a great story. And I like the great story better than their actual truth. No check, it was bounced. But yes, Tony did have a fit and needed this shot. And Mr. Bill made it work. And the interesting thing is that we went through several sets of dog tags, throwing that off, trying to get it. So now that we have HD and 3D and several of the different formats of being able to freeze frame, they have learned that we threw Viper off, and we've thrown Scarrett off, or Jester off. We've thrown a lot. 7 different people got thrown off the aircraft carrier, except for Goose. So, and back in 1985, when we filmed it, you couldn't freeze frame anything on a VHS tape. and be able to do that. Now that we have this technology, one of the interesting things is that the Belmont Plunge, when we recreated the locker room scene. So we could not disrupt the Navy's locker room. There was too many pilots going through it. It's a general locker. There's other pilots that are getting showered and stuff like this. So we rented Belmont Plunge and turned their basement into the locker room at $80, $100 to do this. So we decorated a bulletin board. And one of the funny things is they put an aardvark invitation up there at the Oak Club for the aardvarks to come. And then somebody hand wrote on the bottom of it, "Go aardvarks, bark bark." And they put that on the bulletin board, and no one knew that for many, many years. And another one is there was a party hosted by Monk and Bubba. And I forgot all about that. I had the invitation at home, and they had posted this party thing. So it's very interesting how different things have come together. It's Cosgrove and Man, and this is done at Belmont Park in the fake hallway that we created. We had a staircase that went to nowhere. And so it just kind of went up to the ceiling, and there were 14, 15-foot ceilings, so we built a staircase up to the top, and they walked halfway down. As they're walking, you see Man and Cosgrove. Those are our first and second AD directors. So set dressing thought it was funny, but their name in it because just 3 weeks ago they didn't have a floor. Yes. The construction guys, I swear to God, they must have been getting paid by the hour because they were slow.
There was a couple that walked by.
It was part of San Diego Film Commission's list of homes. You want a cottage on the beach? This guy will rent you one. So locations went up and scouted it and said, this is perfect. We wanted it, we rented it. We had an agreement for 8 days of filming and 2 pickup shots. The last day before we went on the carrier, we needed a pickup shot. And the guy comes out, we expected to write a small check, Mr. Bill expected to write a small check. As we get there, the guy said, no, I want this like outrageous, enormous sum of money. I don't know, 10 grand or something like that. And that's when, if you look, the for lease sign or the for rent sign, it's not really in the ground. It's kind of propped up by a stake. And they quickly put that down, did the motorcycle around the side, and called that a day. Another interesting thing that happened when we were at Kansas City Barbecue, Market Street went straight. Now it's got a curve because the trolleys came through. But at that time it was a straight street, and they decided to put in a new sewer system as we were filming. The story is that Locations was going down to NES, and they were looking at NES and then the G Street Pier area for the motorcycle to ride down. We also needed to find a tugboat for the drowning scenes out at sea. So all that was at G Street Pier at the end of Broadway and Market area. And the location bus is filled with the director and the key people, and they go and they find places. They stopped at the Kansas City Barbecue for lunch, and they said, yeah, this is the place we're going to be. So they then told Tony to make a point, come to this place. So I have a memo that says that, Tony, you need to check out this place Sunday night, or you need to go with the original location. So they got a driver, they took Tony down there, and holy crap, he just like, this is it. I want the piano. I want all of this. And it was fantastic. What we didn't know is 2 weeks later, when we were actually scheduled to film there, there's a construction crew half a block down the street cutting up the asphalt to put in this new sewer system. And we bring in Trailerland, and they recognized what we were doing, and so they moved up the block and started cutting a hole right in front of Kansas City Barbecue. But we had backhoe and all this noise going on. And it's bad enough with just the airplanes that fly over Lindbergh at that time, let alone having this backhoe. So Mr. Bill again had to go out there and say, all right, here's a check, go back down the street, how much does this cost? And so he had to pay them for them to go down the street. We ended up filming at Kansas City two different weeks for about 3 days each. We went in July 27th for a couple days, and then we had to do a re-pickup shot on September 11th. And so it's kind of an iconic day that we picked up on September 11th. But those were the 2 days. And it was very interesting. Again, Mr. Bill was Mr. Bill on the movie. That was his call sign. And then somewhere in the middle of the movie, he became Dr. No. And I'm not sure how it was Mr. No to begin with, and then it just became Dr. No. And I'm not sure how the evolution, but they actually made him a name tag that said Mr. Bill, and then it changed to Mr. No, and then it changed to Dr. No. So it basically became, as we got further and further into the movie, everybody wanted more money for different projects, and everything was just getting to be a little bit expensive. So it just became, nope, no more. Yes. About 200 miles, 108 miles off the coast of San Francisco. So if you were on the San Francisco Golden State Bridge, look westbound, go out about 108 miles, that's where it was. And they just basically went out there and did the big giant circle. Javier Madera will be one of our speakers this afternoon. He was a flight safety officer on the deck. So he has a couple of cool stories to talk and share about today. What other questions do we have? Yes.
What's your favorite memory from being on the film set?
Is that right? What's my favorite memory? Oh my God! So you guys are going to film this. It's embarrassing, but we'll do it. So I am 24 years old. My mother was raised strict Mormon, and I actually believed that the gates of hell and the bishop could breathe in, or look into your soul and know that you're completely lying and blah, blah, blah. So, with that in mind, it's 1:30 in the morning. Tom Cruise has just finished doing the sides for the next morning, and I have to go deliver them to the frat room at the Travel Lodge. The door, I knock on the door. And the door opens this car, and Val Kilmer is there. Which, by the way... Now, Val is wearing a pink negligee with little fuzzy fuzz and fuzzy slippers. He's got a cocktail. And he goes, "Hey, Frankie. Hi, I got work for you guys." And he goes, "Oh, you got homework." Tosses it over his shoulder and opens up the door. Now, Tony's in there, and Val, and Barry Tubbs, and 4 or 5 other actors are in there, and they're all having a drink and two, and he goes, "You want to come join us?" And I look in there, and I'm going like, okay, this is what a young man should be doing, but the gates of hell were actually opening, and I'm very conflicted. So I was just like, no, and that's when it became, yes, I'm a young Mormon boy, and they tried to correct me and give me a smoke and drink. So that was like my fond memory of them now learning how to corrupt me. So it was every day of trying to do different things. Val has a great sense of humor. They all have a great sense of humor. And so every day I was on the evil team. So I'm on Tom's team. And Tom and so Maverick and Goose are on one side, and then there's Iceman on the other side. And so the rivalry between the two of them was on set every day, so that they would play. And so it was like A team and B team, and it worked very, very well. So I'm on Maverick's team, so hanging out with the other guys in the other room was frowned upon. But they found ways to heckle me constantly. So yeah, it was. I think the Roxy bar was the opening scene. That bar scene was a lot of fun. We did a lot of rehearsals on that. We listened to Born in the USA, and they got everybody jazzed up so much that we wore out the jukebox tape machine. They sent the driver off to go buy another one. and we continued listening to that. And then when they got everybody hyped, then they would cut it, and there'd be no sound. The background people would mouth and mimic talking, and then the iconic song started coming. I enjoyed the Ranger. The Ranger scenes were all the interior shots done on the aircraft carrier. We filmed that on board the USS Ranger. That was a lot of fun. It was in dry dock or import is the correct name. And it was import. They were doing some work, and there weren't a lot of people on the boat. And so we pretty well much had run of the whole thing. And it was a lot of fun. I got to explore. I enjoyed that. I think. I think just every day being on set, it was different. The crew was great to work with, but the Navy pilots from all over the place it was just amazing. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about is this whole movie came from an article in a magazine, and the original journalist that wrote this article had been out at Area 51 6 or 7 months before, and he had seen this black bat-wing airplane fly out of Area 51 and had half a photo of it. So he goes to the Pentagon. Well, the Pentagon didn't want to talk about that, but they did want to talk about the Top Gun pilot program. So they fed this journalist this whole thing about Top Gun. And he goes, good. So he wrote about that instead. Don Simpson is at the dentist's office having a root canal. So he's waiting, and he's reading this article, and he goes, wow, this is my next movie. So him and Jerry go to the Department of Navy in Washington, D.C. They pitched their whole idea. They had 7 movies that they had made that all made $100 million before dropping it in the video. 1980s, to make $100 million, that's gold. I mean, you're on top of the world. So the Navy listened to these guys, and they said, okay, we'll give you the movie. So they get this permission slip to go to Miramar. They talk to the base admiral. The base admiral is getting ready to retire. He's got 2 stars. They're going to give him 3. Get him the movie. He retires. So he gave us pretty much a run of the whole base. He assigned an officer to be our liaison there, John Simpkin. John didn't want to do it because John wanted to fly. And being our officer, you don't get to fly. So for 3 months, he's like, man, I'm grounded? Nope, this is suck duty. I don't want to do this. And so the director, Tony, and Don and Jerry, and Mr. Bill, and a couple other people, along with John, were in the Admiral's office at Miramar the 20th of April, about 2 weeks before we filmed. And they're talking about how great this movie is, and the love interest for Maverick was a bar waitress who was also a aerobics instructor. They wanted the aerobics outfit, the 1980s leotard with the high stockings, the cool colors. They thought that was really great. John Simpkin looked at the script and he goes, you know what? Christine Fox is Charlie. And she's an actual person. She's an MIT graduate. I get tons of posting. She knows more about aerophysics than anybody else probably on this whole planet. They call her up, have her come down to the office. Tony Scott listens to her, and he's like, I love you. I'm going to pay you $50,000 to come to be in this movie. She goes, I'm not an actress. I'm a aerophysics doctor and plane instructor. And so they then went out on, and she decided to be consulted, and they went out on the hunt to find different Charlies 7 days before we start principal photography. 7 days. Now, they already got the script writer already working on the whole Charlie role, but they got that to bed, and they hadn't found the Charlie. So one of the people that they had interviewed was Demi Moore. You gotta remember, this was back in 1985. A lot of people didn't want to be attached to this movie because of the feeling in Hollywood at that time. And so they had talked to Patrick Swayze, they talked to Charlie Sheen, they talked to many, many people, and nobody wanted to be attached to this. And they finally got Tom, and they got Tom because they gave him a ride in the Blue Angel plane and out of Yuma. And once he got out of that plane, he's like, "Ooh, yeah, I'm gonna do this." And it was an excellent choice. I think the Maverick role was played very, very well by him, and he is such a serious, focused actor that played by anybody else. And I'm very fond of Patrick. Patrick Swayze was one of my best friends. I worked for him for many, many years. I know Charlie Sheen, and I think that the other actors that they had looked at would have not made this character the way that Tom Cruise actually made this character. It was just an amazing job. And the chemistry between him and Val and him and the other actors, this whole thing, they were all young, and it was amazing because the pilots were all young too. I think John Simpkin was 28 and the rest of everybody else was like 24, 25 years old. And here they're flying, a Mach 1, Mach 2 plane, $50 million toy, 30-ton airplane, and it's the time of their life. So it was very, very interesting time. What other questions do we have?
In spite of the character, the acting method, did Tom and Val, they generally still really get along pretty well outside of the characters?
Their characters, they enjoyed being on the set, and the rivalry that Iceman and Maverick were supposed to have. So there was an interesting document that I found the other day that hasn't been seen in a while. It's what they call core relationships. And so the screenwriter actually wrote many pages of core relationships. Maverick and his father relationship. Why is Maverick so torn up and acts the way that he does? Because of his father, not knowing whether his father was really a screw up or not a screw up. There's a core relationship between Maverick and Goose. Goose wants to actually graduate from Top Gun so that he can get a desk job and be home with his family. He's a family guy. He wants to be with his family. So it's very important for him to graduate, but he also wants to be Maverick's best friend and not let him down. There's a relationship between Iceman and Maverick, and it goes into the relationship that they hate each other. Iceman is from money. He actually has a ton of money, and so his uniforms were tailor-made. They were flying cross, and they actually bought a higher grade set of uniforms for him. He had the cross pins. We had the Navy generic black pens that say U.S. government property on it. Everybody got a box of those once a week. You pull them out and you stir your coffee with it and toss it in the trash afterwards. And that's what you did with the government pen. They decided that Iceman's fingernails had to be manicured. So we got a manicurist, and they cleaned up his fingernails, and they gave him cross pens. They sent someone to the exchange, and they bought gold pens, and he was able to flip them. He was going to do it with a coin. He was very talented, and they decided to do it with a cross pen. But he comes from stockbroker money, and that's why he was dressed better. So he's much smarter. That was his core relationship. Viper's relationship and Viper's relationship to the other people, Charlie and her relationship. And so it was very interesting to read this whole interaction of how the actors are being made. And then the actors get to read it and then move on. So obviously they're all competing for the Top Gun trophy, which they won. So there's rivalry.
Any chance we'll ever get to read the core book that you talked about?
Yes. So we are looking at all the documentation that we're doing on this. We're going to put together a book and bind it, put in the photos, and distribute it. One of the things that we want to do is put in the Mr. Bill's photos that never have been seen. Jennifer has a book that that's been sitting in a closet for 35 years with pictures that no one has seen. And so we decided we would do this, and then the footage that we have today, we will put together. So there's some tidbits that we're holding back that we want to. Yeah, Michael will give me a month to recuperate from this, and then Michael will start doing that, and all of us will know. We're just stunned. I mean, Mr. Bill is very, very stunned about this whole movie. We made it. We didn't realize it was going to be an unlikely hit. We didn't. He did Men of Honor. He's done so many other movies that made well, like it, you know, they were different. I worked on Armageddon and quite a few other movies, and I thought, yeah, these are great. Men of Honor, we thought was going to be a great thing, and yet here we are, Top Gun. 35 years later, people name their kid Maverick, and it's just. This movie is cool. We all know it, and had we thought about it, we would have, you know, found more production donations than what we did.
Are you a hamburger eater?
Yes. It was very interesting. I met a lot of you guys, and I answered a lot of questions on Facebook. I met the guy when we went down to look at the travel lodge where we stayed 30 years ago. The maintenance guy, Jose, he joined the Navy after watching Top Gun one night on a date. And he goes, the date didn't go too well, but I enjoyed the movie so much. I went to the Navy recruiter office, and I was nothing. It was just a boat yeoman, okay? But he did his 4 years because he wanted to join because of Top Gun. And now he's maintenance manager at the Hilton, and that's, you know, pretty cool. But his life changed because of that. And a lot of people's it's just the aviation history, the interest in it. There's an awful lot of components. There's a tie somewhere to everyone about this, and that's the cool thing. And for me, it's a very humbling experience for y'all come to listen to me ramble about stories that happened 35 years ago. And there's a lot of really cool things that happened on the movie, and it was hot, and the flight line was hot, and yet everybody came together, nobody complained. You know, it was just a very interesting time. We found out that Don and Jerry are like two 12-year-olds that are very, very powerful men, and so Billy Bottolato was in charge of, well, he was part of locations to begin with. And then as the movie developed, we needed a wrangler for Don Simpson, because he would come and he would see a jet engine with, like, there was a rippled guy, and he's working on the jet engine, and it's just out on the ground, and he's on a forklift, and he's building this thing, he's got some big muscles. Don walks by and goes, we're going to put this guy in the movie. I'm like, okay, and so they found a wrangler. So Billy then became Don's wrangler. So he would go wash the Ferrari every day, took a couple hours, and then just kind of wrangle him away from the set all the time. We are passing Miramar. Here is the golf course. This golf course on Sunday, all the boys, we went to go play golf. We have no idea how to play golf. We're young kids. We thought you play golf like polo with the golf cart. So we had a couple cases of beer in the back of the golf cart, and we were doing golf polo up and down this thing. Well, the MPs came, and they're like, okay, boys, you know, you're either going to wear handcuffs or stop doing this. No more golf polo. So we returned the golf carts, but we did do a lot of burnouts out here, and it was fun. Now, if you look on the horizon right there where that new building is, that wasn't there. That is an old road. There's a set of telephone poles that you'll see occasionally. That road is the iconic road when Maverick sees when he's racing down, you see the telephone poles, and not the jet. Not the opening scene, but the second scene at sunset when he's racing to Charlie's house. That was this roadway right here. And Then the Marine Corps came over and started building different things. All this wasn't here. It was just part of this giant golf course, and they took half of it away because people don't use it. This area that's coming up is the old Marine Corps, this area right here. They had airplanes, helicopters, all sorts of stuff here. And they lost their funding, and up until, there's one helicopter left. Up until about 4 or 5 months ago, there's some other stuff here. But they took them away. So, they had an F-14 3 years ago. That F-14 they sold to Gillespie Field, and they put it down there in San Diego. And Randy Peters was the transportation coordinator on this movie 35 years ago. Randy's now god of transportation at Paramount. So all the movies he gets to assign different drivers and a crew to different movies. Because Randy is high up in the totem pole, he is the guy that drives the Transformer Man on the Transformers. So anytime you see the big, huge Optimus Prime, that is Randy driving that giant machine. So Randy Peters is a really cool guy, very rugged, like Paul Newman in the early 30s, handsome guy. So Randy, it was so important to get this F-14 and get it up to Reno for Top Gun Maverick that we couldn't trust anybody else. So Randy came down in a flat 18-footer and had the wings taken off, packed it on the back of this flatbed, and then put the wings on another flatbed, and they drove it up to Reno. And it took about a week to get this F-14 up there. And once they got to the Tahoe-Reno Pass, it snowed. And it was like, it just dumped. And they had to have the plane there. And so then they actually hired, snowplows and a heaving machine to make the road open and available. And so you'll see a couple pictures of that floating around where the F-14 is going through. But it came from here, and then it went there. Yes, hi.
So why are you moving a Tomcat to Fallon?
They needed it for a scene. And so I never asked Randy why they needed it, but they needed it.
For this movie? Or for the new movie or for the old movie?
This is for Top Gun Maverick that happened and filmed in 2019. They moved the F-14 for whatever reason. They needed that F-14 up in Tahoe area.
Fallon.
Yeah. So I don't know how it plays in, but I do know that the airplane at North Island, or 32nd Street, that's up on a podium, they CGI'd that and made that an F-14. So when Maverick pulls up to the gate, it's a different plane, but they CGI'd it and made it an old F-14. There just aren't enough of them. An interesting story. My wife was raised up in Camarillo, California. Oxnard, yes. So my son's a CB attached to Point Mugu. My father-in-law was a rocket scientist attached to Point Mugu. There were 6 F-14s at Point Mugu sitting there in a parking lot for like the last 20 years. Now, we get a new base commander there, and the base commander says, "What is this junk doing?" And look up, this is base housing. When we were here, all this was the fuel tanks. Yep, because they built the hotels here, they couldn't have the fuel tanks here. So there was about 30 fuel tanks here, and they've been there for years. And they started building all this stuff, and it was unsafe, so they put base housing here, and then further down is where the fuel tanks are now. About 5 miles away. But all this over here was just open, fuel tank open area. Now you can see it's training ground, training exercise. This is the actual freeway that we were on, and when we needed to cross over, there was no on-ramp or overpass. You crossed right here in the medium, and the gate's coming up, yep, a long time ago. And you just crossed over the dirt and waited for someone not to hit you, and this right here, this is the main gate, and we will see it in a few seconds. There it is, where all the yellow stuff. That's the actual main gate of Miramar that we all jumped over this thing. Now, as we pass, you look over to this side of the bus. That's the beginning of the hangars. There's the first hangar. That's brand new. But you look at the round ones behind it. That's hangar 1, 2, and 3 of the original hangars that were at Top Gun. And about where the second concrete building is, there, the tan one, and there's the air tower. So the tan one is the last of the original hangars that were in existence. Just to the left of that tan was the Top Gun tax trailer. So I thought that this would be fun. We could pull over and take a picture. And so I get over in my SUV, and there's stops and there's signs all over this. It says no stopping. Well, they have a camera. And so I'm out there with my phone and trying to take some pictures and scout this out and figure out how we can just stop and take a look real quick. Within, I don't know, 2 minutes, there was a military cop car. And they're like, ID. And I'm like, I'm not Russian. And they're like, we didn't ask that. We don't want to see your ID. So I explained who I was, and they're like, oh, well, that's cool. We're the Marines. And I'm going like, I understand, but you were the Marines then. And but you protected us then. And so anyhow, that's where we filmed, and it was pretty cool. When we got done filming on the runway, so when Maverick is riding the motorcycle shows up sometime while we're at Miramar, a couple weeks into filming, and that's when the scene started being shot for that. They had given Tom a small lesson in Paramount. So Billy Bottolato and Randy Peters got him on a motorcycle, showed him how to shift and stuff like this. No one had told me that he did not know how to ride a motorcycle. And so bikes show up, they're pretty cool, everybody's excited, and it's lunchtime and they're behind one of the hangars, and Tom says, he's on the front, and he goes, jump on, this is gonna be fun. We jump on, and fall over. And that's why there's a dent. So we had some continuity issues from the very beginning. So I gave him a refresher course and said, this is how we shift and stuff like this. And like I said, he's very, very fast, very, very quick, and instantly he was able to pull off all of the motorcycle scenes by himself. The pilots those are the guys. So we have Heater and Mr. Bill. Mr. Bill has never granted an audience or talked about Top Gun. Now, he spoke with Meredith Jordan about a book, and over time, he developed this book, and he finally approved the last draft, and he's happy about this book. So, Michael is going to explain it. It's Meredith Jordan where you can find it. It's a great book, and it's very spot on with a lot of details. The very first one was written, it was like Mr. Bill was Mr. No constantly throughout the book, and it made him sound like he was uncaring and didn't care. So they finally came to a better version of the book. And so it's very interesting that Mr. Bill is going to talk about Tony and the relationship with Tony. So Mr. Bill is hired, and he's putting the crew together and the key personnel. He's interviewing Tony Scott. Tony comes in and he's talking, and he's like, well, I want this and this and this and this. And Mr. Bill's going like, this isn't going to work. So Tony takes 4 pieces of paper out of the fax machine. We didn't have real copies, real fax. And he took these 4 pages, and he starts to write I can't think of the word. It's like a comic strip, but we call it something else in the film business. So he's writing these little storyboards. And so he starts writing the storyboard, and he details the opening scene of how he envisions this on 4 pages, all in about 15 minutes. His drawings, they're cool. The people are cool. Maverick is this. Cougar is this. Shows it to Mr. Bill. This is my idea. Mr. Bill goes, you're hired. We have those 4 pages. And so I'm in talking with Mr. Bill about what we want to do with those. I would like them to be donated to the NTC Foundation. We're working on it. But it's just little things like that that are very interesting of how all this came together at the last minute. It's just... What other questions do you have for me? Yes?
Will we ever find out what was written on the paper airplane?
Yes. So I called Kelly and I talked to Kelly quite a bit about this. And Kelly remembers that it's something that would inspire her to smile and bring out that thought. So we know that Props didn't write it because she knows that Tom wrote it like 10 minutes before. So she remembers in her mind, without being absolutely correct, but she remembers that it said, you have a beautiful smile. And that would then trigger the response that she needed to get on camera. And so we know that. And we know that Props didn't write it. We know she remembers that Tom wrote it. And so it was a very endearing thing. So we got that to bed. We also know that Cougar... Okay. We also know that Cougar almost orphaned his son and wife. However, nobody on set had a picture of a wife and a son. Jennifer, stand-in, said, well, I have a picture of my wife and daughter. And that's Cougar's wife and Cougar's daughter. So they rewrote the script and they said, I almost orphaned my wife and daughter. So it was rewritten, and that's Jennifer and her daughter, and her oldest daughter. Yep. We still do not know who is the man in Maverick's father and Maverick on the shoulders. I've asked Pete Pettigrew, I've asked all the other pilots, I've ran out of people to ask. Eventually, what will happen is there will be there'll be a fan one day that will see that picture and go, oh my God, that's me and my dad. And that's what I'm hoping.
I got a quick question.
Yes.
Do you know if the Marines kept the Fighter Town USA on the one hangar?
No, it's gone. Nope. So, Stephanie Hall lives in Phoenix. Stephanie was dating a guy in the Navy as the Navy quit and transitioned into the new buildings. They threw away tons and tons of stuff. And this is where she got all of her memorabilia, is the F-14 seats, and so the Sundowners emblem, a lot of the squadron memorabilia was just all left there, like they walked away. And it just ended up going in dumpsters. And so she rented several U-Haul trucks and grabbed tons of stuff, including pilot helmets and other stuff that was just left there.
Why was everybody so sweaty in the interior cars?
Hotter than hell. Yes.
Oh, no,
so
that was...
you can't pump enough AC in there, and with the 10K light, which is the smallest, it's just hot. And so it's May, June, July, and August in San Diego, 4 of the hottest months. Inside the carrier it was bad, so they just decided, you know what, even on days that we had full AC inside the buildings and stuff, it was still a little warm, so they sprayed everywhere. It looked sexy, it was hot, and it looked nice. And so it just turned out to be a trademark that everybody's going to look hot and sweaty, but their hair is perfect. Nobody wore a hat, so it was very difficult to get anybody to wear a hat.
So the heat was because of all the lighting, not necessarily the carriers?
Correct. Yeah, carriers are, you'll be on the midway, you'll notice that it's nice and air conditioned, and it's fairly, fairly okay. However, with all the lighting, and then you get this many people in the room to do the camera, the script supervisor, all these people. You just don't have enough. You can't pump enough in there.
Right.
So that's why it's pretty hard to swim. And then it also looked cemetery scene. So we can talk about the cemetery scene. So we shot that. As you looked in your book, you guys saw the pictures about the book. Tony actually worked really hard that morning working on it. And so they went down and they set up Viper's house, and they got that exterior scene done. They got the interior scene walking out. Maverick gets his advice, knows what he's going to do. That took about 2.5, 3 hours to get done. I mean, it was just quick and easy. Which then broke everybody for lunch, and we went up on top of the hill, and Tony went over to the cemetery and sat on the grass up against a tombstone and started writing out and the little storyboards about how he wanted this. And we worked on it, and we worked on it, and worked on it, and then they rehearsed it. They brought the car in. They're talking about it. Both Charlie and Maverick are in the car, and they got the lines going, and the sun is going from this way. It's going from the east, going over the west. And so we were on this side of the bay, and the sun started going over to the other side of the bay. And then we're faced with losing the sun. So we had to change the angle of the camera, and we flopped it this way, but the rise of the point, we couldn't see enough. And so after they shoot everything, then they develop it, and then the next day you put it on VHS and you bring it back to the production office, and everybody gets to watch it to see if it's going to flow. So the actors get a copy of it, and the director gets a copy of it, and then the producer and a couple other key people. And it's called dailies. And they watched it and they go, just not going to work. And we were chasing the sun, it just wasn't happening, and it just didn't flow. It just didn't come out very well. So they decided to do this on the carrier. They were going to have the memorial for Goose on the carrier. How does Maverick get away from that and put that ghost to bed? And so this is the hour on the carrier. The carrier, this is the great urban legend. So, did I tell you this story? I told the other story. Okay, so this is the great urban legend. It is a fantastic story. So, 6 days on the carrier. We're leaving in the morning. The ship is turning and already headed back. And they've done several turns on the water out there. Big giant turns. And Tony Scott is out there on the deck with the camera, and the sun starts to come into play, and the stars are into play, and everything is in alignment, and it's like the epiphany of the hand of God coming down. And Tony yells, "Bloody hell, this is it. This is the shot." And he's excited, and he's jumping up and down. And Mr. Bill is actually over in Video Village watching all this, and they all have the monitors, and they're going like, okay, he's found it. Great. So he's looking through the peephole, and the boat's moving, and the sun's moving. He goes, "Where the hell is the sun? Who's moving the sun?" In his British accent, and he's just flipping out. He's like, "Who the hell is moving it?" Then he realizes the boat's moving. And he's like, "Wait a minute. Who's turned the boat? Turn the boat back the other way." And he starts to run, and he's running upstairs, and he's yelling at the captain to turn the boat around. The captain said, "Well, we're scheduled. We're on schedule. We have to go back home." And Mr. Bill is there, and he's like, "I don't care what it cost. Turn the boat around and let me get the shot." And so it was just one of those moments where Tony was like, again, going over budget. However, Mr. Bill has known this for several months of the behavior and the traits. So Mr. Bill realizes, so if you have $100 every day that you're spending for filming, Okay. So we have $100 to spend every day. And so maybe one day we spend 75, the next day we spend only 110, the following day we spend 50. At the end of the week, we have $100 left over. So Tony's arguing with the captain and telling the captain that we need to be back in this thing. And I will write a check. And Mr. Bill's like, no, you're not going to write a check. And he goes, I'm going to write a check. And so no check was ever written, no check ever bounced. Mr. Bill covered it, but Tony did say, I'm going to write this damn check, blah, blah, blah. And so it's a great story. But it did, and that's how we got the dog tags. And we threw several different dog tags over until the actual scene got done. So Sean Penn was getting married to Madonna. And so we had to get nice suits. So we went to La Jolla, which was the only place in town that you could buy a really nice suit. And there was a jewelry store that had Hoyer watches. And he bought a stainless steel Hoyer, and I bought a navy green Hoyer. And then 2 years later, they got sold out and bought by Tag. But we have one of the original Hoyer watches that we bought.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and we were mocking Jerry and Don because that week they had just bought matching his and her Ferraris, and we had just bought matching his and her Hoyer watches.
Speaking of watches, a lot of people probably don't know, but the watch that Maverick wore in the movie, the time was frozen on it. So if you watch a couple of different scenes, the watch has the same time on it.
It did not work. It was a Porsche watch, and it did not work. And it was a great watch. It had lots of dials on it, and that's why it was chosen. There were 3 other watches to look at, and there was another black watch made by a cheap company. It worked. I actually had it for many, many years until it died. Then I couldn't get battery for it, and I don't know what happened to it. But there were an array of different watches at that time. But that had the most dials on it. It looked really cool. And now, over the years, IWC has the Top Gun watch. I think they're like $5,000 or $6,000.
Any idea whatever happened to that one?
No. I know that, so I explained to the other group that Jim Tyson, the wardrobe guy, Jim bought the jacket, the actual Maverick jacket, at a secondhand store in Santa Monica. That jacket had all of the jacket trade, had the enlisted and regular ship patches on it. So the only patch that was added was the VF1 on the bottom, but pretty much that's the whole jacket the way it came out. And it was just an iconic jacket. We bought it at the secondhand store, and he bought the cowboy boots at the secondhand store, and they were just a half a size too big. So they stuffed them with some tissue paper at the end of it, and put some nice soles in the inside, and both of those survived the movie. About 6 months after the movie was released, Tom had the jacket, and he gave the jacket to his sister in New Jersey. And the sister held on the jacket for all these years until Maverick, and when Top Gun Maverick came out, they brought the jacket back. They had to do a little bit of work on it. However, the cowboy boots were stolen about 3 months after the movie had been released. He was at a gym on Hollywood Boulevard, and he locked them in the locker, and he came back that afternoon after working out, and the lock had been cut off, and they stole the boots. They have never surfaced ever. So we don't know what happened to them. We do know that there's an awful lot of Top Gun memorabilia coming out, and I'm highly suspicious about this stuff because the flight suit Billy took. Now there's some pilot flight suits because there were a lot of pilots that mimicked them. So there's the possibility of that. Don't know where those went. But I do know that I took the flight suit. Billy took the flight suit to wear to a Halloween party, and I took the navy whites to wear at a Halloween party. And all I did is just let the hem out. And my ex-wife stole the navy whites and the helmet, when Viper's helmet after we got divorced. So those disappeared. Yeah. I was upset. I was out on a movie and I come home and a lot of my movie jackets are gone. So anyhow, we went and did this movie, Top Gun. And then about 6 months later, Jim Tyson, who had the wardrobe at his house, the big 18-wheel, it's his stock, and we did Flight of the Intruder. And I got on that film, and I actually was prepping it a week doing nothing. So I'm in there pulling off all the Top Gun patches, and we're putting on Vietnam-era patches. Yeah, same flight suits.
Wow.
Yep. Now, we go forward another year and a quarter, and Mr. Bill is doing Hot Shots. Jim Tyson is the wardrobe guy. Mr. Bill is very loyal to his crew. We work well. We know his department heads know each other, and so Mr. Bill said, we're going to do Hot Shots. So Jim Tyson shows up. I'm going like, holy hell. And so we are in the Mojave Desert getting ready to do the first week there. And so we've already prepped, and I'm helping ripping off the Flight of the Intruder patches, and we're putting on the fake patches that don't exist for anything for Hot Shots. Because the United States Navy said, are you kidding me? We're going to do a parody off? No. We got, people are coming to the Navy. And so right below us is the sub base. That is where The Hunt for October was filmed, and that little pin down there is the dolphin area where we had dolphins. The Navy SEALs used dolphins and so forth like that. To this side, all this was a gun range, and you could shoot stuff. Now, when we were here, we were not allowed to bring our personal cameras, and the reason why is Russian trawlers were off this side, and so they had fishing boats with all these giant antennas, literally 1.1 mile off the coast in international water, and they would listen to everything. This is our cemetery. This is where this little street right down there is where Tony and the Porsche was. Right there's the cul-de-sac and that big tree. That's where he lives. This is the new wall they put in. Of the other sailors. Directly across is North Island, and onto the left side of the windows here is where the USS Ranger was in port. So this was still here. The wall is further, but it extended out just a hair more. Right about here, where this new building is. This is all new, but before. It had ended here. North Island. Yes. So there was a little bit of exterior scenes done at North Island. So they've been very secretive about that. Randy Peters is my friend. I've known him for a long time. I've asked him, and he goes, if it leaks out, first of all, you're a blabbermouth, so I'm not telling you. And second of all, if it came from me, you know, he's got they all have a contractual thing. And so it was very interesting in the PR stuff, what they get to say each time. And so, yeah, it's yeah, it's like the last 4 episodes of Friends. When they got down to the end of it, it was I was actually bodyguarding one of the actresses, and they gave the script to the actresses like 10 minutes before shooting, and then they collected it back. They were that secretive about letting, and none of it's done in sequence, so they were very, very hesitant. So Top Gun Maverick was basically the same way. It was very secretive, and there aren't any copies of the script out. It'd be very interesting to see what comes around later in life.
I get it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I have 2 treatments over the last 20 years. John Simpkin wrote one, and it's an amazing thing. However, first of all, the Navy was already pleased with the outcome of Top Gun, and Tom's franchise had not developed at that time. And then later, Tom's franchise has developed everything that he touches is golden. That guy is a very, very skilled actor. And so, it's, okay, I gotta pay for this. Hold on. Had permission to drive down, and we could walk around quite well. Unfortunately, we did something the sunglasses, which we'll see in the thing. So, we are at the last day at Charlie's house, and we are wrapping So it bent the arm, and that's why a lot of the scene you'll see the little bend in the arm. And so, yeah, I just
Sorry.
Not a big deal. And it took several hours of scrubbing because they sprayed it with the film so that I cannot see the camera as I'm talking to you. So it's got this nice film on it. That's why I get to say Ray-Ban. And so I'm stupid and I'm wearing these things. I'm like, what the hell? You can't see anything out of these things. And so by then, the sun went down on the thing, we put them under here, I don't know exactly. But I was home and I tried windows. And, I was getting ready to put gasoline in distraught. And then somebody said, use rubbing alcohol. And so I used rubbing alcohol. And I wore them for quite some time.